I'm not even gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the absolutely beautiful Krystal Vayda and Elizabeth Posey. Did I say that right, Krystal Vayda?
Yes, you said it correctly, Vayda.
Okay, awesome. They are of the 2021 movie Dreamcatcher. How are you ladies doing today?
Krystal? Very well, thank you. Very well, and thank you so much. Finally being able to coordinate with you, and thank you for having us on your show.
Absolutely.
Yep, this is an absolute honor. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm glad to finally be back in LA. Just ready to start working again, honestly. But
you had like 2 days off, and you're like, okay.
It's like
you needed a break, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to get back.
I had like a week break, and now I'm ready to get back into the groove of things. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Hard worker. And that's something I actually want to talk about real quick before we get into the reason why you ladies are here with me today. 2021's Dreamcatcher. Now, for those of you that have not seen this film, we are not going to spoil anything. That's something I want to be very upfront about. We do not want any spoilers here because I would love for you guys to check this out. I have all the links down here in the description, not only for the film, but for these ladies on social media as well. Please make sure you're giving them a follow. That way you can keep up to date on what they're doing in the future. So before we get started, Elizabeth was an actress and Krystal was a producer on the movie Dreamcatcher. Something I want to talk to you guys about. First and foremost, Elizabeth, I loved your performance. This is a movie where we talked about this beforehand. You should watch this movie 2 or 3 times to try to pick up on some of the things that you missed, because at the end, it kind of hits you and some of it went over your head. So it's a good movie to go watch 2 or 3 times. I would strongly recommend that. Now, something me and Elizabeth talked about, which I'm super happy to talk about, because I think this is so super fucking rad. Elizabeth, you did your own stunts during this movie, and you had some pretty gnarly stunt scenes in this film with the fight scenes and whatnot. So what can you tell us a little bit about those days when you were filming?
Gosh, and like I said to you, those were really like the height of my excitement when I was shooting those days. I mean, the whole process was incredible, but I had never filmed a stunt scene before, and we kind of just jumped right into it. You know, they said, is this what you want to do? Do you want to do all this? And I said, like, hell yeah, let's away. And, you know, obviously there's safety measures that come into play, and you as the actor can, you know, choose to follow them or not. I kept, like, every scene, I kept throwing myself to the ground, like, as hard as I possibly could. And they would be like, Elizabeth, you don't have to do that every time.
We're like, the camera's not on you.
It felt real. It felt authentic. And the guy that I got to work with, Ryan Powers, he was great. He helped me figure out how you make those hits, or you get pushed up against the wall, where he's really controlling it the whole time. And the objects that we used obviously were props, but it was not only an awesome learning experience, but the fact that I got to do everything on my own, and they kind of just said, you know, have at it the way that you would do it by following the rules as well. I walked away with a lot of bruises, but it was a great day. I want to be a stunt woman now after doing that. It was super fun.
Well, it comes off as genuine in the film too, and you can see that you took your bumps and bruises. And I think that that's one thing that I absolutely love about this film, is how real a lot of this film feels. Even with, again, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but family relationships and family friendships and unfortunate friend zonings and things like that we've all gone through in our real life. These are things that you feel when you're watching this movie, and then you sprinkle in the horror mystery element of it to make it that much more powerful. So it's something I very much enjoy. Krystal, you and I have talked about this as well. As being a producer on this film, was this something you signed on with pretty early, or how did you get involved with the project?
Yeah, well, my brother Brandon is my producing partner, and this is our first film under our new production company called Quarzo Studios. And we'd been friends with Jacob, our writer producer, since like 2015, and because we develop other projects together. So the three of us work seamlessly together, and it was inevitable we are going to do a project together. We just didn't know which one. And one day we just had that aha moment. It clicked. That's how the whole idea sparked, and we went in quickly into development and told him what we wanted, and Jacob came back to us. I thought it was 17 days, but Brandon said he wrote the first draft in 11 days, which is absolutely, like, to me, it's unheard of. because I can't even write my name down.
I know. Can you imagine writing a script
in 11 days? And it was all there. I mean, in terms of like, it was all laid out, the characters. I mean, it was pretty much there. I mean, he did several rewrites even on the day but that's just him. So that was really impressive. Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, we knew we wanted to do something for about 5 or 6 years. And this project really picked us. Like we call it, Dreamcatcher is totally a girl. And she decided she wanted to be born. She decided when she wanted to be born. And we were laughing. It's one of those things where you can't really.
Why is she a girl, Krystal? I want to hear your reason.
She's a bitch, she really, like, you can't control what she's going to do and when she's going to do it. It's like, even with filming, week 1 was supposed to be a very cruisy on-set experience, very mellow. We wanted to introduce, Jacob and the crew and the cast into filming kind of as light as we could, but nope. We ended up swapping locations, started at the warehouse downtown LA and pulled in like 400 background actors amongst everything else. And so anything that could happen totally happened with this film, and it kept everybody on their toes. But we had such a cool cast, I mean, and crew, that like the 18-hour days, like nobody even wanted to leave. Like if we could just spend the night and had like sleeping bags and then just kept going, it ended up being like a 21-day sleepover or something like that.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, a lot of night shoots too. So you're spending the evenings together.
Sure.
And we really, like, by the end of it, we were tight-knit family. I mean, we still are. We still all talk to each other. We still all get together. We still all talk about working on projects together. Jacob, the director, I'm doing a self-tape with him tomorrow. Like, that's just how it panned out. It's really special. You don't often get to have that. So.
Right. And this is a film that, I don't care who you are or what you say, if you tell me you saw the ending of this film coming before the ending happened, I'm going to look you right in your face and tell you you're a fucking liar. There's no way that you're going to predict the ending of this movie before the ending comes. There's so many twists and turns in this movie, but it's not obnoxious about what it's trying to do. It's still very calm. It's still very down to earth. You get some movies that are just super obnoxious with what they're trying to do with their twist. And it's like, come on. But with this one, it makes sense. And they give you hints, but you're not going to get it until the very end. And I think that's incredible. So round of applause to you ladies and the whole cast and crew. I'm a very big fan of the movie, and I'm so honored that I was able to check it out before we got to do this interview. I strongly recommend you guys do the same. The links are right here in the description. So make sure you're checking it out.
Yeah, please do.
So we know what you guys are doing now. I want to go to the future a little bit. What projects do you have coming up, Elizabeth, that you could talk? I know you might have some NDAs and stuff that you can't really talk about, but do you have anything coming up that you could tell us about that you're going to be working on?
I just completed my portion of filming. That's why I was in Atlanta for 2 months, what I was telling you before, in a show called Heels. It's going to be on Stars. Totally brand new show. 8 episodes. It's about WWE wrestling. Super fun. Drama, comedy, it's got it all. The writer, Mike O'Malley, is an excellent writer. Got to work with some really incredible directors as well. But yeah, it's I can't really say much about my character, but it's totally unique. There's nothing out there like it right now, and I think that it's gonna take off. So it'll probably be like a summer release. Just got done working on that. Working on a indie project in April with a dear friend of mine. That's about it right now. So fingers crossed for a big year, for more, but super satisfied with everything that's been going on right now.
I'm very excited about Heels. I just told the story to Elizabeth before we started. The first time I ever really, really got grounded, I Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music super kicked my sister right in the face. And that was the first time I ever really got grounded. I wanted to be the heartbreak kid growing up. Like, that's a total true story. What about you, Krystal? Do you have anything coming up that you can tell us about that you're not going to get in trouble for talking about?
I grew up with, to add to what you're saying, I grew up watching WWF because I had 2 older brothers, and I had a huge crush on Shawn Michaels. I thought he was so good looking. I mean, it's just, he had that star quality.
I love this Shawn Michaels kick we're on right now.
Shawn Michaels, he was smooth. He was smooth. I'm working on quite a few things at the time. we've got a lot. We've got a whole slate of film. We want to stick to doing young adult genre films. We already have the script for Dreamcatcher 2. And so we are going to launch a new sort of college murder mystery that is totally different than Dreamcatcher. But we want to be very sure, because I mean, we're very committed producers. And once we start something, we don't really want to get interrupted and then stop and then get a phone call saying, hey, can you, so we're kind of like waiting to sign on the dotted line, like, hey guys, are you sure? Like, let's just, because Dreamcatcher, it's been, Elizabeth, we cast that in 2018 in December.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. We've all been really excited and anticipating this to come out for a while, but COVID came into play, and that's been difficult on everybody in the industry. So it's tough to release a movie right now, to be able to follow protocol and to make it work. Like you said, so many things have been halted, and then those projects get lost. So it is important to start it at the right time, I think, right now.
Yeah, and just make sure that the relationships are in place. So I mean, we're really excited, and the way that my brother and we operate, and Jacob, is that we really take our time in our projects. Like, we're not the big studios that could pump out 5 films a year. I mean, if we can really Brandon and I were saying, if we could do like one movie every 9 months and pour our heart and soul, because we're such family people, and we both want to we both want to get married and have kids, and there's got to be a point where you find that balance in life where you're like, hey, this is what I'm doing, I'm totally following my passion, but at the same time, like, I'm also a human being. And I think that as long as we can maintain like that human being element, I think that we'll be able to incorporate that into our storytelling. I think that if we get too caught up, I don't know. You know what I'm saying, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. It's all about the balance.
And well, I can tell you this, as a guy I'm married, I've been with my wife for 16 years. I have 3 kids. So when it comes to balancing kids and passions, fuck those kids. You go for your passion. These kids suck. I'm joking. I love my kids with
they'll
all.
Suck the life right out of you.
But no, you're right. Lightning in a bottle. You got that with Dreamcatcher. So to build on that, right now is the perfect time to be thinking about that. And I love the direction you're going, taking it in having Dreamcatcher do almost an anthology, telling a different type of story with the same. I think that's great. That's something I've been a huge fan of. I think anthology movies are some of my favorite horror movies of all time. Creepshow 2, Tales from the Hood is a movie that I'm a huge fan of. And Halloween was originally set to be an anthology series. Every year, Halloween was going to be a different story. Then they had the 2 that were Michael Myers. The 3rd one was Season of the Witch, and it was received so poorly. That's why they had Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. But the original plan for that was every year you were going to have a different Halloween where it was just a completely different story with a completely different character arc. But because Michael Myers took up 1 and 2 and was so popular, they decided to keep him and bring him back for part 4, which I think is an absolute travesty, because I think Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Okay.
You gotta go where the money is, I guess. Sometimes that's the sad part about Hollywood, is you gotta.
I mean, you can't really complain, because Michael Myers, he's a G. I love me some Mikey Myers. So
I wrote a script in 2013, which is now a project that Jacob helped us develop, to the point where, like, it's just, Jacob is so smart. He's so smart. And I remember at the time when I showed what I felt was like a final draft version of it to my mentor, and he was like, yeah, you're totally onto something. This is really, really good. It could be great. And he's like, but why are you holding back? And I'm like, oh, I'm holding back for the sequel. Cause we like to set up shop and plant something. So it's like, and he goes, don't do that, because if you don't, he said, you got to give it your all. You have to give this movie, this project, your absolute all. There is no sequel if the first one doesn't land. And he's like, well, what about the sequel? What if we give the farm away too soon? And he was like, you guys will think you'll grow so much in the time. And he's like, just, you have to absolutely go for it. And so I always took that note, and I'm like, all right, well, now I'm always very open.
Right. Well, and that's true. Cause like you said, you could save all your time for the sequel, but if the first one bombs, there is no sequel.
Right. Yeah.
So that's an actually very, very good way of thinking. Okay. So we talked about the future, what you guys got going. We talked about right now with Dreamcatcher. But now, ladies, I want to take it back to the past. And I want to talk about how horror started for you. The first horror movies you watched. Krystal, we'll start with you. Your first horror movie was?
Psycho. So when I used to spend the night at my aunt's house, they would always have the TV going. And I don't think I really paid attention because I was so young. I mean, this film was made in what, 1970, right? Like that's old black and white. Yeah, I mean, this is Hitchcock. So I don't think it resonated with me. It's not like I sat down and focused, but I just recall being as a kid, like, I mean, that shower scene haunted me in a way, like, holy. But at the same time, I think that was an early time where I was fascinated by filmmaking, because the way he cast his shadows and like would do the setups and the creepiness, and I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, what about you, Elizabeth?
Yep, that's what I was saying. Yeah, I see. I think that with Psycho, what you were saying is like, this is one of those movies that to me is the first slasher film. This to me is where slasher started. You know, a lot of people will say it started with Texas Chainsaw or started with Halloween. To me, Psycho started slasher. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But yeah, let's get to you, Elizabeth. Your first horror movie was?
Well, the first one that made it sticks in my mind. Maybe I saw something prior to this, but I was very young and I saw What Lies Beneath. And that to me, yes, the hand over the tub. Such an epic scene. There was something about that stuck with me. My mom took me to see it in theaters. I swear to God, I was like 10 years old. I don't know what she was thinking bringing me in there, but I remember that was the first movie I ever watched where I audibly screamed when things were happening. And there's kind of like a slow creeping way that they filmed that, and the way the story, and you know, it's not a slasher. People aren't jumping out at you, which I think makes it more difficult to scare people if you're not using those tactics. You know, I love a good jump scare, but this had a different element to where it kind of like settled in your bones a little bit there until the very end. So loved it. I
can't blame your mom for taking you to see this, because when you think of, you know, Robert Zemeckis, the guy that did What Lies Beneath, you know, I always think of Back to the Future. I think of, you know, Forrest Gump.
Right.
These movies that Robert Zemeckis was a huge part of. And then you got him doing What Lies Beneath with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right.
And you're like, what a fucking hard left turn from Back to the Future and Forrest Gump.
Yeah. And to me, it's a complete escape from like the majority of horror films. I'm not even sure that you could categorize it as a horror. It's got such a different feel. But I remember being genuinely horrified when it was happening, and they didn't use any cheesy tactics to get you there.
Right.
Yeah.
And something I want to bring up real quick. This was not scripted between any of us. I don't do that type of thing. Everything I do comes completely natural. I want everybody to know that. Krystal just talked about how she saw Psycho and that shower scene really affected her. And then we went from that into What Lies Beneath. And I just want you guys to see on the back of the What Lies Beneath DVD that I have here, it says, does for bathtubs what Psycho did for showers.
There you go.
Is exactly what this says on the back cover.
That was
and I think that is so hilarious that we were just talking about that.
You know what, to me, the most horrifying, or I guess most breathtaking scene in What Lies Beneath is when she's paralyzed in the tub and she's trying to unplug the tub with her toes. And like, you don't know, like they take you to the very precipice of not knowing whether she's going to get out of there or not. And then the reflection that she saw of the girl in the tub, you're right. Every focal point was really centered around that tub, that bathroom.
I'm going to add to this amazing energy right here because like, I'm such a fan of Elizabeth Posey. I always tell everybody, and we all do, we're rooting for you. And I'm just kind of curious when you watched it, you're kind of a young Michelle Pfeiffer, you know. I mean, we always say young Charlize Theron, but now that I'm thinking about it, and when I just referenced my mentor, he actually produced What Lies Beneath, so it's kind of like all randomly. Like his name's Mark.
Incredible.
And, he doesn't do horror. He doesn't do.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Mark has been. Okay. You know, I try to get him. And he helped us a lot with on the post with Dreamcatcher and whatnot.
Okay.
And when he saw the film, he actually asked about you. He actually asked about a few people. And I'm just kind of, no, did you ever think that like when you were watching What Lies Beneath that you saw a little bit of yourself in her, or you thought like, huh, maybe I could do that?
You know, I actually always saw myself as a comedic actress. So horror, even though I've been a horror film fan my entire life, the avenue I always saw myself going down was comedy. However, I will say when Michelle Pfeiffer plays Catwoman, that is the character that I would absolutely kill to play. She has those pointed features, the delicate but hard beauty, and the cold stare that I think is, she can be soft, but she can also be terrifying. Which I think is hard to play as a beautiful woman like that, to strike fear. And I think that she does do that. And that is something that I would love to be able to do myself in film. So yeah, absolutely. She's an icon for sure.
100% she's an icon. I think that she's amazing in this movie. And something you just brought up in the bathtub scene that you were just talking about when she's paralyzed, I think that's one of the scariest parts of the film for the other reason of when Harrison Ford grabs her and he's like, what is this? And he picks her up and he looks and it's the other girl's necklace.
Yeah.
And then she falls back and she's rotted. And Harrison Ford jumps up and he hits his head on the sink. Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite scenes from any movie. That scene really, it takes your breath away when you see that scene. It's such a great scene because you're right at this moment, you're not thinking about a jump scare. You're thinking about how she's paralyzed, how she's been chloroformed, and how she's going to die at this point. And that's what you're thinking. She's dead. She's going to die here.
They used a lot of that layering of the two faces with the two women. Like, remember when she was sort of trying to seduce him and then she face morphed into her face once again. So there was a lot of that going on and it's always unexpected. So when it does happen, I don't know if you could categorize it as a typical jump scare, but it was a great way of turning something that you would predict into the unexpected in those moments, for sure.
And I totally agree with that part. When they're on the desk and she's got the red dress on and she looks down at him and she's like,
I think she's starting to suspect something. Your wife.
Krystal, I want to bounce back to you. Which scene from Psycho would you say affected you the most?
There was a few. I mean, if I haven't seen it in a while, but if I were to watch it again, I'd probably look at it differently because I think that we evolve as human beings. I would say every 7 years, I think that but I think that there was a creepiness between the two of them. And the way that Hitchcock would the way he shows and just set up his shots, like he'll do a close up of him and then he'll do a close up of her. And I think that he was communicating a lot more just in the way that they would, set up the shots and do the cinematography. And again, I was only 7 years old. So I really didn't look at film the way that I would probably break something down now, but I could tell that something wasn't right. He set it up. The whole house wasn't right. The whole, the rainstorm, in the car, it's just the way they transitioned their scenes. And obviously they had impeccable score back then and the very dramatic sound coming down on you. And when you're 7 years old, that's scary. That's really, really scary. You kind of just want to close your eyes and you don't know, you're still young and you're innocent to the world. So I just remember seeing that in the shower scenes, just kind of, because I always look over my back. I mean, still to this day, I'm kind of a big sissy, and I hate being home alone. And I'm still scared of the dark. And when I even get into my shower, I'm like, I don't know. I feel, and then I read a quote the other day saying that we're actually not scared of being alone. What we're more scared of is that we know that we're not alone.
Right.
Or you're not scared that somebody might be there. You're scared because you know that somebody else is there. Or I've totally messed it up. But I was it was more touching on the spiritual world and how it kind of coincides where you can feel it, but you can't see it. And I'm that's the stuff that really is bone chilling.
Well, I think with Psycho too, they played on something that they knew was highly probable that everybody is pretty scared of what's behind the curtain in the shower. everybody feels that way. Nobody's ever not talked about, oh, I was in the bathroom and I pulled it across just to make sure a killer wasn't there. I mean, I to this day still won't shower if I'm home alone.
Really?
Here. Yes, I'm genuinely terrified of it.
If it makes you feel any better, I just genuinely won't shower.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a route you can take just to always keep it safe.
Right. See, I don't know. Me being a guy, I think my thing is like if I'm in the shower, right, and somebody pulls that curtain back, I'm just gonna like hold myself and just start kicking, like You're like, that's gonna be my natural reaction.
But then
and I'm probably gonna fall.
But
and
then you might slip. You might slip.
Yeah, no one wants to fight naked. Like, dude,
you're vulnerable. Like, it's not a good position to be in if someone's trying to kill you.
Right.
Our minds.
My shirt on before you cut me, man.
But I think our minds, just the older we get, we experience more. We see so much, and what we're fed in the media, and just whatever we tune into. It's like, you know, that's the thing. Is like going back to. Excuse me.
The world's a scary place.
It is. I thought your scene was scary in the shower. No spoilers, but I thought your scene in Dreamcatcher was really scary because the setup of the shot, we'll leave it at that. For those who haven't seen it yet, you're missing out because it's a great setup. And that's like a perfect example of like a current day glass scene where a girl is, I don't know. That's so realistic. And I don't know. I thought you pulled it off. Were you scared shooting it, or was the water too cold?
I was pretty freezing.
Now I'm all worried because Krystal was just like, well, you know, Elizabeth Posey has a shower scene. Everybody just exited out of this video super quick to go watch Dreamcatcher because wait, shower scene. I'm on it. Don't worry, guys. Whatever you do, just don't fall in the bush. You know, make sure that you don't. No bushes. Don't fall in any bushes. You'll be just fine.
I won't fall in any bushes.
No, but seriously, the way that we set that up, and again, no spoilers, because I thought that, you know, Jacob and Matt Plaxo, our cinematographer, they did a really, that's the kind of shit that really is scary.
I think in our most vulnerable moments is, and it's interesting now that we're talking about these two movies that are both centered around bathroom, there is something about the vulnerability of the bathroom itself, whether you're going to the bathroom or you're in the shower or you're washing your face at the end of the night. It's not a place where you're probably your most courageous. So maybe
this is my time.
So maybe there's something to that. Maybe there is, because I think if you're developing something where you're trying to make people feel scared, you take into account, well, what are people most afraid of? What is going to make somebody watch this and feel anxious?
And it's enclosed, and that's
there's
really
something to that. There's something to it for
that's
sure.
Just like a psycho analysis to it, and then but it's like being in
the mirror, seeing things in the reflection behind you, I think is always something that people are afraid of.
And also claustrophobia, like being in a small cooped up where you know, like, okay, number one, I'm probably going to slip, but number two, like, you know, you're done. All they have to do is shut the door. And
to avoid bathrooms.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just if you want to be safe, don't shower, don't use the bathroom unless you have somebody with you. You know, hold hands. Yep. Stranger danger. Got to have an adult with me to go to the potty.
Right. I follow that rule to this day, so I don't know what you guys are doing. But.
I got 3 kids. When I'm in the bathroom, that's the only time that
you're never alone.
That's okay. Look, that's daddy's time. Okay, leave me alone when this door's shut. It's one of those do not disturb things. If you see a sock on the bathroom door, that's not even anything going on. It's just dad wants his alone time. Sometimes I go in there just take a nap.
That's right. A very long bathroom break.
So Elizabeth, I do want to bounce back to you on What Lies Beneath real quick. We talked about which scene affected you the most, but what do you think your favorite scene from What Lies Beneath would be?
Ooh, my favorite scene. Oh God. Okay. I love when she, you know, the neighbor that she has where she doesn't know what's going on. And actually, this is probably one of the things that did scare me as well was when she was trying to peer over into the neighbor's yard and the eye pops up.
The eyeball?
I think that was the moment when I audibly screamed in the theaters. And so did my mom, and I just held on to each other. And it was just so simple. That is like when you're looking through something, what are you most afraid of? That someone's going to be looking back at you. So
And
again,
the way she does it too, with just the
and the crying, or it's like the
Mhm.
snot is like coming down her nose, like you know that this person is in desperation mode. I don't know. And her quick descent into madness is always interesting how they play that. You know, I think that we always get so frustrated when watching the movie. The woman is crazy and the husband's like nothing is going on, and it's infuriating to watch. But her acting was really incredible to kind of watch this grounded woman kind of descend into this mad place, and you start to wonder if she's crazy too.
well, especially when she runs into him at the school and she's like, I know you killed your wife. And
Yes,
she's like,
my wife's
what?
right here. Yeah, yeah.
I think one scene that does not get talked about enough, especially in What Lies Beneath, but everybody usually talks about, you know, she's starting to suspect something, or the bathtub. But I think the end, like when they're sinking in the truck and the body's coming up and she comes alive and she grabs Harrison Ford
Yes.
and holds him so he can't get out. I think that scene is so fucking scary. Like, I think also because the lady that played the woman that he had the affair with is also the stepmother / evil person in the movie Dead Silence,
Right.
in the James Wan universe.
Yes.
And so she's already scary to me. So going back and rewatching it and seeing her again and seeing her almost, you know, melting away and rotten and turn towards him and grab him.
Yeah.
It's so epic. Such a great scene.
I have a challenge for you. If you watch What Lies Beneath anytime soon, when the movie blacks out at the end, when they're at the snow and it blacks out at the end, tell me if you see a face.
Okay. I'll watch it again tonight and tell you.
Every time I watch it and I make the room really dark, when it blacks out at the very end, I'm convinced that you can see the shadow of her face. So there's like dark caverns and then white where you can kind of see it. And I promise you it's something that people completely miss, and I see it every single time.
Like a ghost? Like, what do you mean?
It's her face, the wife that he, or the woman that he killed.
The affair.
Yeah.
It's her sort of almost like an X-ray, like the way that like a photo looks if it's inverted.
Oh, okay.
But
So it's just like her skeleton almost, like the skull.
Yes, because you know it has that harsh blackout at the very end there, and it's
after she lays the rose on the grave.
White, but I swear, tell me if you see it.
Okay.
I have to know if I'm crazy or if it's amazing little thing they put in there that a lot of people miss. But
I will check it out tonight. You have my word. Now, we talked about the first horror movie that you ladies watched and how those movies affected you. I'm going to go scream on you here. I'm going to ask you each the same question, but Krystal, this time I'm going to start with you. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie. Oh, God. I think that changes all the time. I don't have like one. I would have to say I know I think I know what you did. Yeah, I know what you did last summer.
Okay.
I would have to say I always go I don't want to say Scream because that's too like spot on, and that might probably be Elizabeth's, but being a 90s kid and growing up with, you know, teaching Mrs. Tingle and I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream and the Final Destinations and the Skulls, and like the Skulls is more like a murder mystery and stuff like that. I put them under that same umbrella, but that ensemble kind of element, I loved all of that. Like there was just something I really loved about I Know What You Did Last Summer. I don't know if it was like Ryan Phillippe and like just the casting of it that was like really just kind of like crazy sexy cool. Like it just had that element of like, I want to be friends with those kids. Like, I want to go to a party with them. I don't know. Or like being from the West Coast and getting introduced and seeing, I never been to the East Coast at that point, and seeing like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like they have like ice, you know, the whole ice and the fish and the fishing and the fishermen, and you just being introduced to like a different, I guess just like
almost different culture really at that point.
Kind of, but as an American, yeah, I just was really enthralled with all that. But yeah, I don't know. What about you guys?
Well, okay, let's bounce it back to you, Elizabeth. What's your favorite scary movie?
Okay, so I love Scream, but that's not my answer. I do love Scream though. I mean, I'll watch it.
Oh, you have
I went to get Ghostface tattooed on me when I was 14, and my cousin talked me out of getting Ghostface and getting the actual Scream.
Scream.
So that's what that
that.
movie meant to me. So I would not hate on anybody that said Scream.
Yeah, I mean, you can say it's a typical answer all you want.
I think it's the typical answer.
Answer because it's so good. You know what I mean? That's because that many people love it. But my favorite horror is The Conjuring.
Oh, nice. I just did a top 10 jump scares video of my top 10 favorite jump scares of all time, and The Conjuring is extremely high on that list.
Yes.
So I definitely get it. You had a challenge for me. I have a challenge for you, for both of you. We were just talking about Scream and the influence that Scream has. After we're done with this, look up the horror movies that came out the 3 years before Scream and the 3 years after Scream, and look at how much that movie super impacted the genre. Without Scream, the horror genre would not be what it is today. That movie just completely did a shot in the arm and revitalized and rejuvenated the horror genre as a whole. So I definitely think, yeah, it could be a typical answer, but I think it's just like, you know, what's your favorite sci-fi movie? Star Wars. It's just like, that's how it is, you know, like personally me.
Exist because they are good and make sense, and favorite movies exist because they're good. And there's no reason to hate that.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I'm ironic and I like this other movie better because, you know, people will try to be that way. But
the last movie that I thought was just really, really, really well done was the remake of The Invisible Man. Have you guys seen it?
I did.
So
like it a lot. Yeah, it was very good.
I liked it a lot because I was really impressed with the technology of how they're able to accomplish that. And then I saw the behind the scenes and all that. And I was just like, you know, when you see something that hasn't really been done, or at least I hadn't seen, you know, anything like that, I was like, but I haven't seen the original one either. So maybe I don't know.
Well, I always think it's interesting to see how horrors evolve when technology improves. So I think it was far more difficult at a certain period of time to create certain scenarios based off of limited technology, and now there's just so much you can do. So
to be fair, the Universal Monsters Invisible Man is phenomenal. The effects in that are great. What I like about the new one, in contrast to the old one, they did make the story its own, because in the old one it's more about the Invisible Man, not about her. And what I love about this one is it's not just, oh, I'm going to drink this potion and now I'm invisible. It's absolutely, like you said, the technology for that was brilliant. And hearing Leigh Whannell talk about, that's what I wanted. I didn't want something where it's just so far-fetched of, oh, he drank a magic potion. I wanted something that could realistically, you could see happening today. And with the way technology moves, that is for sure something you could see happening today. Somebody creating a suit like that, that's completely camera, and that so they can see what they're doing, but you can't see them because of the almost chameleon technology. We talk about jump scares. My wife audibly screamed in the theater when Elizabeth Moss threw the paint on him from the upstairs and he was right there. My wife did the and I was like, I don't know her. This bitch crazy.
I'm not scared at all.
Even though that was in the movie trailer.
Oh yeah, she was out. She was gone. Woo!
That's when it had my attention. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a really fun.
Yeah, they played with that concept really well.
Yeah. I think The Invisible Man, see, for me, it goes almost by decade. Like, I think House from 1986 will always be my favorite horror movie. I don't think that will ever get topped. I think that will always be number one for me. But I am a really, really big fan of The Cabin in the Woods. I think
I love Cabin in the Woods. That's one that I watch over and over again.
Yeah.
I love that too.
Because that has everything. It has a love story. It has horror. And the two guys in the bunker are so funny. Like when they're talking to the guy on the phone, he's like, am I on speakerphone? No, speakerphone. What? Like, it's there's such, to me, that's as close as you can get to a perfect movie. There's one big glaring error in that movie that I'll tell you when we're done filming. But to me, besides A Nightmare on Elm Street, that's the closest you can get to a perfect horror movie ever.
I'm with you on that. Cabin in the Woods is excellently done. And I always have been a huge fan. If it's not going for ultra scary, I've always been a huge fan of when people can introduce comedy that makes sense.
Yeah.
it's hilarious and terrifying. And
As long as it, like you said, as long as it's not a forced comedy, as long as it feels, natural, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
And if you could have comedy mixed in with horror, I mean, you got to let the movie breathe a little bit. So if you can get a good, if you can get lucky, but when you cast an actor who's able to, and it's got to be subtle too. It can't be like over the top where you're trying to like do like a 3-camera setup, in a half-hour comedy where that's a different performance than like if you're doing like a comedy for a feature film. It's you still have to hit your line. You have to still hit your punchlines, but I mean, and then being able to jump right back into the drama and the real life of it. That's like a whole different, that's a real ability to be able to switch on and off and find that smooth transition. Because I think you can tell when actors can't do it, or they're like naturally not funny. And you're just like, you're trying to be funny. And then I, as a viewer, like I sometimes get upset and I'm like, that wasn't funny.
Because comedy isn't just about reading funny lines. Comedy is all about timing.
Yeah.
Like I think that's why being a comedic actor would be harder than being a dramatic actor, because you got to have that timing with comedy. Like you said, it's not just somebody reading jokes. It's not knock jokes. You have to be able to have that physical ability to have the timing to go right along with what you're saying.
Making people laugh is, I think, the hardest outcome to achieve through any sort of entertainment. I think making people laugh is the hardest achievement.
Yeah.
Making people cry is tough, but you can usually do it. Making people scared, but I think
just kill a dog.
Yeah.
You'll make them cry.
I'll cry.
There should be more Oscars to animals.
Right.
True. The one from I Am Legend.
Yeah. The Meowskers. There you go. We'll start doing that. Start giving the animals the Oscars. We got the Meowskers. We'll bring that. We'll bring it, Krystal. Me and you. We're gonna start the Meowskers.
I'm behind it. You guys have one. I'll be on the board.
If Homeward Bound isn't inducted as a Hall of Fame member, I'm out though. Okay. So before we go, ladies, I do want to, we always end this with the same question. We go back to a skull count. Now, what we're doing is we're ranking Psycho and What Lies Beneath, but we're not being critics here. We're not ranking them on production or acting quality. We're ranking these movies on how they affected you and what these movies mean to you. So this time I'm going to start with you, Elizabeth. We're going to go with What Lies Beneath, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. And you absolutely can use half and quarter skulls. Elizabeth, what would you rank What Lies Beneath?
Okay, so What Lies Beneath was my first, but besides The Conjuring, it is my favorite. It is my favorite horror movie. So I venture to say 5. Like, I really think it's that good. The acting is impeccable. The fear is throughout. I mean, it's just, I love that movie. I'm going to watch it tonight. So I would say 5. I think it embodies everything that scares me to my deepest core.
Yeah.
Except for maybe demonic possession. However, there kind of is that element as well, where she keeps kind of coming out in her. So
when she has her different materials, yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 5. It to this day, has an impact on me. So 5 for me.
And what about you, Krystal? 0 to 5 skulls for Psycho.
We know what Elizabeth's doing tonight. 5. I mean, come on. Before Wes Craven, it's Alfred Hitchcock. Even though this is like one of his later movies, and then it's Wes Craven, and I think anything that those guys have ever done, I would say, is a 5. You'd have to, because of the way that they think. They're so smart that it probably went 100 feet over your head. I'm probably going to go and watch Psycho now tonight, because being an adult, I'd probably, like I said, I'd probably look at things differently. But I think any good filmmaker would make you think. And I think what he did in that one was creating like that polarity, but also, Norman Bates and Marion, they were basically the same person, but they weren't. And and that was the takeaway that I got from it, even though I just didn't. And I just started thinking like, wow, it's a really scary world out there at 7 years old. And I've been scared of the dark ever since. So
think about when he walks into that basement, or when she walks in the basement, I apologize, and turns the chair, and you see that Norma is just a skeleton, and she's been dead this whole time. And then, you see Norman run in with the knife, and he's got, he's dressed up as her. that is, to me, one of the first, besides The Empire Strikes Back, probably one of the first big twists I can remember in a movie.
Yeah.
And before we go, there's one last thing I wanted to talk about that I meant to talk about earlier. I'm going to throw 3 horror movies at you right now.
Okay.
Halloween, Jaws, and Psycho. These 3 movies can show you how important a score is to a movie.
Yeah.
Because even if you haven't seen Halloween, you haven't seen Jaws, or you haven't seen Psycho, you know, or you know,
Jaws is just 2 notes, right?
Yeah, and you know it. Anytime we're swimming, you know, you put your hand on your head and even Halloween. George Romero. Wow, it's been that type of a day. But even John Carpenter said that when he first pitched Halloween, he wasn't getting any bites at all. And then they put that score in there, that piano lick, and they sold it the next day. And it shows you, like, people know the Halloween score if they've never seen the movie. People know the mask, obviously, the white painted William Shatner mask. People know the Michael Myers mask. But I think that the Halloween theme is just as iconic as the mask, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I mean, music is vital for a scary movie. The absence of music can be vital for a scary movie, which is always an interesting take for me. Some of the scariest movies I think I've ever watched are silent, but it has to match what they're going for. Obviously, what you have with Jaws, I think, is incredible, and people always talk about it's just 2 notes. You don't even think about that until someone says it to you, and then you realize it because it's so iconic. But the absence or the inclusion of a great score can both
make or break.
Yeah, completely.
So I do want to remind everybody, I know I've said this like 5 times, but you know what? This is my show, so I'm going to say it again. All the links for Dreamcatcher are down here in the description, as well as the links so you can follow these beautiful women on social media. That way you don't got to wait for me to give you updates on what they're doing. You can follow them and you can get the updates as they come. Ladies, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, I'm Ken Sledge. Keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.